This is the Gemara from Shabbos, and and we were learning right now regarding the second base of Mikdash. They built the Mizbeach, and the size of Mizbeach was larger than the first base of Mikdash. That was only 28 amas. This is 32 because they knew based on the pasuk that you can build it up to 60 amas. And the Gemara said there were three Nevi'im that went with them. One of them told them that you could build up 60 amas. One told them exactly where the site was. One of them told them you should know that the kedusha of the base of Mikdash is always there. So Tanya, we learned Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. We're now in the last wide narrow line on the page, right in the middle of the page. So I'm a base on Aleph. Tanya, we learned Rabbi ben Yaakov. Three Nevi'im went up with them again. Three Nevi'im went with them, but a little bit different than before. One of them told them about the Mizbeach up to 60 amos. And one of them told them, when we say a Mizbeach must be in this version here, told them regarding where the site was as well. And the other one told them that the place is holy, even the base of Mikdash upstanding is still holy. The third one, however, the echad sheheyid lehem ala Torah shetikasev ashuris, that the Torah should now change the script. In Sanhedrin Daf Chaf Aleph, we learned, according to we had three opinions there. We had Ezra was the one who brought Ksav Ashuris. He brought with him from Ashur. Ezra brought it with him. That's why the row, as the Gemara says, the row that the Torah should be given through Ezra. If it wouldn't have begun, Chashvan through Moshe. And what he did was he changed it to Ksav Ashuris. So Ezra got all the credit. Here we're saying Chagez Chaim Malach, because sounds from here, Ezra brought it, but people didn't know what to do because they were writing Ksav Ivri, Ksav Levuno, long letters, and then suddenly comes along Ezra and said, "Let's change the whole script." And we had Gemara Megillah as well. Anyway, sorry.
I'm just trying to place this.
What
time period we're talking about?
Beginning of the second base of Mikdash. They just came from Babel. Chagez Chaim Malach. These are the last three Nevi'im. The first in Anshik Nesach Doila.
The solution was the old Ksav, was the
according to this. Remember, we had according to three opinions Gemara there, and one opinion was that he always had it, and then he lost it. Because otherwise, the problem is, how could a Navi be having more Megillah right in the beginning? A Navi cannot be Mechadish, something new. So therefore, one answer in Gemara there was that, or one opinion in Gemara is that that's how always looks Ksav Ashuris. Others learn that they only use Ksav Ashuris in the first look was reading Ksav Ashuris, but it was in the base of Midrash, so nobody knew it. Others learned that the long Ritva in Megillah and Second Perek explains it, that it was a holy, not only was the language holy, but the Ksav was holy. And therefore, because the Ksav was holy, they didn't use it for mundane stuff. And if you were Amaratzim, you would never see Ksav Ashuris, because you always wrote like we do. You have a different script. In fact, there's a whole discussion when we say, the Shachat we talked about last time, that you say Hashem's name in different languages, God, and so on and so forth, whether it has any kedusha. But the Chavas Yorev says, but if you use Ksav Ashuris to write God, or whatever language you're writing in, it has kedusha al Ksav. Ksav is also holy. What have we learned? We learned now there's so many details about the Mizbeach, what's salient and what's not. So we learned Keren, having four koronas, the kevish and the ramp, the Yisoid and having that base, the Ribu and to be a square, that is not negotiable. Aber Midas Orka, Midas Rochve, Midas Kamasai, a Makvin. The dimensions are not that important, says the Gemara. But how do you know that Kiddush? It says in Pasuk a number of times, it says Ha Mizbech. Ha Mizbech is the Mizbech. And Kol Mokshem Ha Mizbech La'akiv. And every time it says Ha Mizbech is Ma'akiv. And by Keren it says Kronos Ha Mizbech. By the Yisoid it says Yisoid Ha Mizbech. And by the ramp it says Pnei Ha Mizbech. And the Rebuah it says Rebuah Yeh Ha Mizbech. So these things says Ha Mizbech, but not the measurements. El Mayatas, when I ask a question on this now, Kiyar Rebbe, it's Kiyar is not the Kiyar. Kiyar over here, we mean that on the Mizbeach itself, they had a whole pattern, a whole design. You had this metal mesh around the middle around the Mizbeach, and then there was this design. So this, it says over there also, Ham Mizbeach should be Ma'akiv. If you didn't make all these nice flowery things, design, pattern on the Mizbeach. You should Ma'akiv, consider what Ham Mizbeach there as well. We'll soon see what we're talking about here. Or Seiv the Rabbi Yasi, Rabbi Yossi said there was no such thing as a pattern; it was just the seiviv. It was that walkway that they walked around. But Rabbi Yehuda, Hochi Nami de Ma'akiv. It's Ma'akiv d'chsiv. It says in the pasuk there, "V'nasata oisa." You should place this tachas karkav hamizbeach. You should place this under. This is called the karkav of the mizbeach. Milimatli. No, it was the reshes that mesh. Metal mesh thing should go under the karkav. What's a karkav? The Tanya we look at machlekes. What's this karkav that we're talking about around the mizbeach? So he says, Rabbi Yom Zekir. That's this design. They had a design around the mizbeach. And Rabbi Yossi, that was a walkway around the perimeter of the mizbeach. So is that makiv? Says Gemara, yes. The Tanya we learned, what happened was that this Luki came along and decided that this Nisach HaMayim business is Bob Mises, so he poured it on his foot. So what happened? Zorgu ha'am besragim. They all threw a sregim on him, and as a result of bombarding with a sregim, they made they caused the hezek to the mizbeach. They damaged one of the stones of the Mizbeach. We learned before, Mizbeach Nivgema, you can't eat kosher, it was a big problem. So what they did was, it was, they damaged the Mizbeach. They brought a piece of salt, a handful of salt, and they closed up so it should look whole. That didn't help at all. It's only temporary, so the Mizbeach was still not intact. Pasnish that the Mizbeach should appear, it was only a band-aid solution, but at least it didn't, it covered. To call Mizbeach, because any Mizbeach, the Ein Lekeren, V'kevesh, V'yisoid, V'ribu Apostle. And Rabbi Yehuda says, Af HaSeiviv, if the Seiviv is damaged, the Mizbeach is possible. And just like Rabbi Yehuda holds that the Karkav is the Seiviv, Rebbe holds that the Karkav was this pattern, it's a pull. Moshe was once asked, Feinstein, how come you and the Lubavitch Rebbe are so against having any dialogues with the Reform rabbis, the Ksura rabbis? He said, you're not allowed to be on committees, that are joint committees. You find throughout Shas, Rabbi Yechim Zakkai used to debate Tzedukim, Rabbi Shur. You have all these people who used to debate the meaning of Tzedukim. So why are you against the Fakert? You should encourage Rabbanim to sit there and have discussions. So much of people think. He said the Gemara says over here that in Ma'aser Sukkah, what happened when this guy behaved the way he behaved like an apicadus, right? He didn't believe in Divrei Chachamim. Is Zorku ha'am esragim. Everyone there stood who saw it, couldn't believe it. They took their esragim, which is a mitzvah and precious, but they couldn't take it and they bombarded him. So he says if the Am knows the difference between a tzduki and a Frumiyid, and they bombard the Sregim, then it's the role of the Rabbanim, Rabbi Yechim Zakkai, to have discussions with the minim. But if today the Am, a rabbi is a rabbi, then it's the job of the Rabbanim to throw the Sregim. Anyway, talk about we learned. Ezel Karkav ben Keren lekeren, where there seemed to be, there was a Karkav, actually it was a top of the Mizbeach, on the roof of the Mizbeach. Where was it? Right before the Kronos, where that Kohanim walked. So the Gemara said, "What are you talking about?" You're saying there between the Kronos where the Kohanim walked. The Kohanim walked between the Kronos. You bumped into a Keren. How can you walk there? Remember, there's another Amma that we gave to the Kohanim to walk around. Now it said, "What do you tell me that the Karka was on top of the Mizbeach?" It said, we just read the pasuk. Karkuv, it says in the pasuk that it should be that the Ma'aser Reshes was underneath the Karka. That means and the Reshes was somewhere in the middle of Mizbeach. So the Karka was on the side, on the wall of Mizbeach, not on the roof. Until halfway of the Mizbeach. So we see clearly that the Karka was on the side of the Mizbeach. We're talking about the roof. There was two Karkas. One was on the side of Mizbeach was purely for beauty, especially if you learn as a pattern. And on top of this Mizbeach, it wasn't just a painting. It was built a little bit raised above the floor, so when the Kohanim walk, they don't slip. Can you imagine it might have been wet up there with the blood and everything else from the emudim, so they shouldn't slip. Push it for safety. So they had the karka on top of the Mizbeach as well. They shouldn't slip and fall. You just said that the dimensions don't matter. Shouldn't be any less than Moshe Rabbeinu did. Knew how big was Moshe Rabbeinu's. The Mizbeach was only an amma wide. Now, you should know the answer right away. How can you say it's an amma? We already had before. Because even though it was 5 by 5, take off one amma on each side for Keren, one amma each side. And then now we had another opinion that the 5 ammas was the midpoint, which means that it was only a radius. The diameter was 10, so then you had 6 ammas. But you learned that there's only one amma. So everyone laughed at Rabbi Yosef. It's a square, 5 amas. I'm gonna buy here for a change. I buy you the feather. Dilma, maybe Rabbi Yosef meant Mokama Racha Kamamar. He meant the surface, exactly how much net surface you have in the bath. Amalei, it was worth it just for this. So Rabbi Yosef said, "Man, it seemed to me the Gavra Rabahu." But this young man over here is a great man. Yoda might come in. He knew exactly what I meant. Kori Elayu, he called the rest of the Talmidim B'nei Ketura. You might be children of Avram, but they got the wrong mother. So they're pretty strong. No, you're not like Yitzchak and Rashi says it. You're not the chosen people. Pretty strong. So the Gemara that Rabbi Yosef wasn't the only one who said it. He probably learned from Rabbi Tarfon because we know Rabbi Tarfon was a captain, and so was Rabbi Yosef. I mean, in Arab Psachim, Rabbi Yosef said the list of it in the 3 chesroin is the 3 word faults, and he says I have them all. He had OCD, he had everything you think of, he had. And also a temper. The nephews of Tarfon, Yassi come at of Tarfon, and they weren't listening. He's giving a shir, and they weren't listening. And he wanted to get them engaged, talk to me. And he said the following: he said, Yosef Avram, Avram went to another wife, Ushma, Yoichni. Her name was Yoichni. Oh, they jumped up. I'm like, Tura. What kind of Yoichni? Her name was Tura. It's exactly right. You guys are her children because you don't try attention. You're not like Yitzchak, the chosen people who will learn. Strong words. Anyway, what happened?
I'm trying to understand what happened over here. He said Dafka the wrong word in order to get them.
To get them. Remember Rabbi Kiva? Something we had all that beautiful sichel. He said, Esther was cool to wake them up.
He said Dafka the wrong word to get them to react.
To see, right, you got a reaction finally, which in a way made it worse. So if you want to listen, you could have what to say. What strikes the one you're participating in my share.
So then they said, no, it's the next to it. He said, oh,
yes, he told me exactly. It's a remez. I'm not saying it because you guys, I wanted to come out of your mouth. As Rashi said, Bnei Tura, here it's different. Einam yoidin l'daber b'halacha. You have just like the Bnei Tura had no idea about the learning halacha, a pasuk ahead, a pasuk ahead. Like the Tzlach writes in Brachas. The Tzlach writes in Brachas there in Lamed Aleph. Chav Beis. I think no Chav Beis. He writes there that Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai gave the last advice, and he says, you should avoid your son min ha'igoyin. So Rashi says, what do you mean ha'igoyin? So normally you teach philosophy. You don't teach your son philosophy, ha'igoyin. So Rashi says there, from learning Tanakh. So the Noda B'Yehuda writes, long in Tzlach, he says that the danger of Tanakh is when the maskilim, they all use Tanakh to get to the people because they know how to get you engaged. And it's such wild things in Tanakh, and people misbehave. People, they get them interested, and they use that to chas v'sholom learn them away from Torah and mitzvahs. Sorry, either Chav Tesam Beis, I think it's Chav Tesam Beis in Brachas. I think it's Chav Tesam Beis. With Asher Yechanan, it's a fat page. Asher Yechanan advice before he passed away. Tell us something. What we should give us some last minute advice. Rabbi Mazakei. Anyway, Yimona is Rabbi Yechanan Hagoy.
I thought he said it wasn't him who said that you should.
Yehi Moeder Shemai. Same one. Yeah, it's on the bottom of the page. This is the top of the page. It says we're right there. Those the twigs that they started out to build the fire on the mizbeach, right? That's how you started the Talmud Shach and all that. Is Orkon had measurements also. There was a long stick. So it wasn't just what do you call it? Twigs. It was a chunk of wood that was an amma by an amma, a block. The oivion and also had a thickness the thing that you use, like a plane that you use to flatten out when you have over there a pile of flour, whatever, or saw. They used to use something to level a leveler, whatever you call a plane, to level it out, and that's how thick it was. So the width and the thing, and then it was a little bit. So it wasn't that thick, but it was a piece. So it had certain measurements. Rabbi Yima says, it was exact amma and a short amma. In other words, we don't want it sticking out from the Mizbeach. You walk by Mizbeach, you wouldn't even know there's a wood on top. Isn't that what we learned? Ala eitzim asher ala eish asher al mizbeach. It says clearly in the pasuk. Shlo ye eitzim yoitzim in mizbeach klum. You don't have to come along and tell us this thing. It says clearly in the pasuk that it should not be sticking out. Tanahasa, we learned over there. Kevish, where was the kevish? On the south side of the mizbeach, as we learned all the time. Oidech, and how long was the kevish? Shloishim v'shtayim al reichiv sheish esed. The kevish was 32 hours long, 16 hours wide. How do you know it was on the south side? So the pasuk v'shachat oisa you should shechted al yerech hamizbech on the side. Yerech is side, but yerech is a thigh, a foot, the leg. So the leg of the mizbech was on the north side. So when you go to sleep, your head is on the other side. So your head must be on the south side. So the ramp is considered the head. That's how you get to the top, and the other side is the leg. Sheyerech mitzafon upon a bedar. So the Gemara who said ema yerech mitzafon upon mitzafon. Maybe the both of them. And the north side was the what you call it was the mizbech, and then north of that, as if you're sitting up. When you're sitting up, your head is the same place as your leg. We're talking about a case where you're lying down, so your head therefore is on the other side. Well, how do you know? Talking about the person, the example was lying down, and yerech means a leg while you're lying down. Maybe it's when you're sitting. Maybe when you're sitting is your head and your leg on the same direction, and therefore maybe it's on the tzafim. On Malay, he said back to him, Ravua ksiv. It says Ravua, which means lying down. So Rabbi says, we need to know there's a square, not a rectangle. So he said, Miksiv meruba. If the Torah meant a square, it should say meruba. No, so Rabbi has back with time and Miksiv robots. If the Torah meant you should lie down, and this should be on the south side, it should say robots. Rabbi answered, Ravua ksiv. It's not here nor there. The mashmach, you can touch it either lying down, or you can touch it square, and therefore must be both. But on my but I tell over here the time it says the pasuk that Shlomo built a mikveh. It says there. Sorry, it says over there. So Yechezkel, when he's talking about the base of mikveh, he talks about how all the dimensions. He says over here. And the steps is ponas kodim. You should always head to the right, to east. You always head to east, and we have a rule called pinish on the point you go to the east. So if you're going, we have a rule go to the right, and you have to face east the first way. So the ramp must be on the south side. Remember, you walk in the base of English, you're coming from the east side. You go to the left of the ramp. When you walk up the ramp, and you make a right turn to get to the east. So that's called pinish on the point. And as long as you're facing the mizbeach, you're always going to the right. How do you know? Maybe the ramp is on the north side. You walk up, you make a left. All it says is you go to the east. Maybe it's taking a left to go to the east. How do you know? You said you made a rule. Kol pinish at the point you mean. Who said? Yeah. Loisa, you can't say it under. Tanya, Yam Shas Shleimer. This mikveh that Shleimer did. Oimed Shleimer Mudin instead of 12 pillars. Shloisha point, and look how we list them. Shloisha point is 3 of them are on the right. Shloisha point Yama. 3 of them are the west. Now, if you're standing and facing the mikveh to go from the north to the west, you're going right. Ushloisha payim negba. Then 3 are facing south. You're going and making again, and shloisha payim mizracha, and 3 are the east. So if you're facing the mizbeach, facing the yam, you're always going to the right. As you know, there's a big machlekes there by Chanukah, long taz, long tshuva, the Samotzedek. But you know what it means when you go from right to left. What's touch right to finish at the paina. The famous thing is when you write Lashon Kodesh, we actually write right to left. If Kol Pinish at the point you mean, and Lahavda, the other language is like from left to right, how come we don't write left to right? So some Tzaddik writes, I can't remember if he's quoting the Taz or he's just saying himself, that when the page is blank, you have to go to the most right point. Just like in the Zebech, you make a right turn. So the most right point is at the end. Now you can't go any more to right. You have no breda, but to go. So you're always going right to left, but that's really going to the right. So and that's the argument about Chanukah, how to do Chanukah, right to left to right. What's the taich? Going to the right, from the right or to the right? In Shuvah, no, not Chaim. In Shuvah's not Chaim. In Shuvah's. Then you go right to. Who said we need the pause? Tell you that 12 pillars. You came pointing lumley. Why does it say the whole time poinim, sfoina, poinim, yama? What do you need so many poinims? But we finish. Avi has been carrying his back. You should know that the kevish wasn't contiguous to his back. It was like a little gap, slight gap. You don't agree, but like so Rab Shimon Yosi was asking to Rabbi Yosi, Rab Shimon Yochai said this and this. Is that correct? So he said to me, you don't agree. Look, it says, you're comparing the basar to the blood. What do you know about the blood? Madam bezika, you stand a little bit of distance away from the keren and you split it. Is a basar bezika, you have to throw it. You shouldn't, no, when you're on the ramp, you throw it. You're not, the mom is touching. No, I learned, that's no raya. I learned maybe it means that you're standing on the mizbech, the ramp could be touching mizbech, but you walk on the mizbech and you throw it into the fire. And that's what means throwing. You know, you compared throwing, but the ramp itself might be touching the mizbech. Amalei, that can't be. Let me ask a question. The fire on or off? The fire. What do you think? Is it going to be a nada? You're going to stand and put into the fire. So of course you have to drop it, or stand a little bit of distance away, or you get burnt. You don't need a pussy to tell you that. You have no breda. So therefore, the guy was saying that maybe you drop it. He says no. There you have no breda, but the kevish. Why do you need a pasuk to teach you that dam, that bus is like dam, that you actually there's a throwing it is because tell you that the kevish should be a little bit gap. So it's like you're throwing it. Yeah. So the Papa says no. You know what it means kidam? Madam, like blood. Ave karkoi mafsika. There's a little air space from the ground that's mafsik. Av basar. Avir karkoi mafsikoi. So if the basar as well, yeah, you need a little bit of space to separate the two. You need the karka, avir of the karka to separate from when you have the flesh to go into the fire. This ramp had two small ramps. So behind pointing, one was the yisoid and one's the yisoid. On the left side, it goes down to the yisoid, and on the right side, it goes to the basis, to the Seiviv. And also, though they don't touch the Mizbech. Why? Should have Saviv. It says you got to be able to walk all around, as if the Mizbech is separate, intact, all around. Is all around. Yeah. Abu says because it says it has to be square again, and if it's touching something else, it's no longer square. You have a piece jutting out, but you have a little bit of gap. No matter how small it is, it's not. But why need both? Because I'm on a saviv. What said saviv around and around. I mean the ogil magel could be a circle. Because Rahman Abu has to be a square. Because Rahman Abu, I mean the adivikat can be a rectangle. Because Rahman saviv, it has to be square. Tanahas we learned because the circle is all equidistant from the center. Tanahas we learned hakevish from his beach shishim v'shtayim. That the kevish together with beach is 62. L'chayda hanishis v'abav is 64 because the kevish is 32 and his beach is 32. So more answers nimtza parech ama yisoid v'amal seviv. Remember the kevish covers over the yisoid on the bottom and it covers the seviv over there. So even though the kevish itself is 32, but along the ground it's only 30. Because two of the amas overlaps the mizbech. So 30 the mizbech and 30 the kevish. Amar B'chama, how steep was it? Kol kivsei kvashim sholish amas lab was a ratio of 1 to 3, which is pretty steep.
It is.
Which is 33%. That's an incline. Usually 15% incline is considered a hill. Yeah. And chutz mikivsei mizbech, the kevish of the mizbech, because it went up 9 amas over a distance of 32. So it wasn't 1 to 3; it was 1 to 3.5, and a certain cheshbon of fingers. So yeshalish amas a machzah 3.5 because it went up 9 from the ground. It was 9 amas high over a distance of 32 amas. So 30.5 3 amas. The etzba v'shlish etzba and a third 1/3 etzba. What do you call it? Bizachrusa. Not sure exactly what the word over here bizachrusa means. Sorry.
The thumb.
In the thumb. Okay. So that is the cheshbon of the mizbech. We'll continue in Mitzvah Shem. I'll be doing